This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Terrence?
I'm here. Sorry. No, that was my finger problem. The time I couldn't get the mouse. I'm just, too many. I've been eating those Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Halloween shapes. I don't know what it is about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, but when they're in the shape of a pumpkin or a bat, they just taste like so much better. Or an Easter egg. Or
a tree.
Yeah. So I'm like, I can't reach the mouse to give commentary about Dick and Tim. So, all right, I'm back. All right.
I think you found your cold open, Rob.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. Oh, Reese's.
It's 12:35 in the morning.
Yeah, it is. Right. Yep. Dixon does a great job of writing Tim and Drake as brothers. Wait, what did I say? Tim and Drake.
Oh. Again, it's 12:36 in the morning.
Yeah, that is the cold opening, folks.
Let me try that again. Dixon does a great job of writing Dick and Grayson as brothers. No, I mean Rick Grayson and Timothy. Rick Grayson and the Drake.
And Drake. The Drake.
The Drake, yeah. All right. One more time.
This show is brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin, whom in the year of 2020, Robin is celebrating 80 years. We're part of the Batman Universe Podcasting Network. Speaking of Podcasting Network, we're also associated with Batman on Films Podcast Network, BatmanPodcastNetwork.com. So between the BatmanUniverse.net and BatmanPodcastNetwork.com, you can find us. Speaking of getting a hold of us, you can find us on all the social media outlets. I have not updated in a while. Again, I think this is episode 3 or 4 that I've said this, but we have a new Blogspot page that has older information on it. I need to upload it, so I'm saying that, so I do it ASAP. But you can find our Blogspot page at everyonelovesthedrake.blogspot.com. That'll be for Everyone Loves the Drake and Everyone Loves Young Justice show. There'll be plenty of content there, and I promise I am going to update that page. And we also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. We have a Twitter page at ELTD Podcast. You can find us on Instagram. You can email into the show at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. And I hope that you do email into the show, and I'm looking at having some different items that you'll be able to get and receive. And speaking of maybe how you can receive those, if you listen to the show on iTunes, leave a review, and maybe you'll get a little goodie basket if you send a review, and more on that later. And we have a YouTube page at www.youtube.com/c/Robin Everyone Loves a Drake podcast, or you can just type in Everyone Loves a Drake. So this is episode 124, and in typical ELTD fashion, there was no intro to this episode. This is going to be looking at Detective Comics issue 700 and the very first part of Batman Legacy, since everything else has been a prequel up to now. So this was initially going to be tied into episode 122, but when we hit the 700th issue of Detective Comics, the discussion went on a little bit, and I think it went on a little bit because I think it was about midnight when we got to this point, but it turned into kind of a celebratory issue. I wasn't thinking about it, but we had some things to say about the 700th issue, and it just seems fitting that this is its own episode. So I won't keep this intro going on very long, but with just recently, in the time that you're listening to this in 2020, the Batman book written by James Tynion for Volume 3 has just reached its 100th issue, and Detective Comics just recently, a few months ago, has just landed on 1,027 issues of Detective Comics. So things just kind of aligned here on the show. So I think it always seems fitting, and probably just dumb luck on our parts that we are reaching a very celebratory issue. And with Detective Comics 700, they really went all out in making this a special book, starting off with a big bombastic story, and they even packaged this book in a particular way, and we talk about that on the show. So enough of the opening banter. Let's just get right into the episode where Terrence, Ryan, and myself discuss Batman Legacy Official Part 1 and the 700th issue of Detective Comics. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, Drake.
Look, if you want to just keep doing the same old thing, then maybe this idea is not for you. I, for one, am not going to compromise my artistic integrity. And I'll tell you something else. This is the show, and we're not going to change it. Right?
How about this? I manage a circus.
Detective Comics 700. Cover date August 1996. On sale date June 26, 1996. Cover price $4.95. What the hell? Editor Scott Peterson. Writer Chuck Dixon. Penciler Graham Nolan. Inker Scott Hanna. Letterer John Costanza. Colorist Gloria Vasquez. Cover credits Graham Nolan. Synopsis for Legacy Part 1, Progeny of the Demon. At the site of the fabled Wheel of Plagues, Batman, Nightwing, and Robin encounter Ra's al Ghul, Talia, and the latest Ubu. Ra's orders all three killed by his gunmen, to the disappointment of Ubu, who is pledged to Talia and wished to kill the detective himself. As the heroes do battle with his followers, Ra's makes plans to unleash a virus which will destroy 90% of the world's population. Having made a computer model of the Wheel of Plagues, he plans to destroy it and head for the New World. As the area floods, Batman and Robin are trapped in the water in a rapidly filling cistern until the air pressure catapults them out, while Nightwing confronts Ra's. He has the upper hand in this match, but as Robin and Batman arrive on the scene, he makes his escape along with Talia and Ubu, who is revealed as Bane. Meanwhile, below ground, the water is rising in Catwoman's cell.
Dun, dun, dun. So, 700. Now, before we get into that, I think this is a feat in and of itself. We just recently celebrated Detective 1027, and then, we celebrated 1000. So 27 kind of felt like, well, this is 1,000 issues of just Batman. But, it had Detective Comics 1000, and then in the New 52, we were talking about Jason Fabok. He got to be on the 900th issue. I think that was the gatefold issue, like the 900 Bats issue from the New 52 or whatever. So a lot of big, landmark issues coming. So I think it's cool that, Chuck Dixon gets to write the 700th issue, and there have been, plenty of other ones. So the 700th issue, and I've never opened this, and this was $1. I put it on Twitter, and I'll put it on Instagram too, so you can see it. But I still have my legacy. I shouldn't say I found this in a dollar box, signed by Chuck Dixon, and it's written Chuck Dixon 98 is when he signed this, but it's in the protective like manila envelope, and there's probably nothing in here other than the issue, but it's kind of like that holy grail thing. I've got it in a nice Mylar bag, and I've never opened this thing. But, they were making a big deal out of this being the 700th issue of Detective Comics, and like Ryan said, it was pushing $5 So this was
96.
$4.96. So this was a big deal for DC, and they had a big landmark story going on. So did you guys, as far as Terrence, did you pick up this version with the manila folder version of this, or did you pick up like the standard, one with Batman holding the sword on it?
Yeah, no, I got the manila envelope version back when it first hit the newsstands, and it was kind of cool because when I started reading comics, which I've told the story before with the death of Jason Todd, going on at Detective Comics at the time, they were celebrating the 600th issue, I think it was, or was it the 500th? No, I can't remember. I think it was the 600th issue. Yeah, so this would have been like my 100th issue around-ish of Detective Comics or so, with the 0 issue, and I think it was like 598 or something. I read that. So yeah, I was always like a geek about like these like milestone issues. In fact, I think I said in school I would like write and try to like calculate like, okay, well, how many months in a year, how many months in a decade? Batman, at the time, Batman came out every other week in the summer, so they would come out with 15 issues a year. So I'd be like, okay, well, how many issues to 700? How many issues to 1,000? Oh my gosh, this will be the first 1,000 book, and can we get Action Comics canceled so detectives can beat it and all this stuff? So, so yeah, I was a real geek for the numbering system.
I know, Ryan, that you kind of have had a, what's the penultimate issue? We got to look at that. So how do you feel about numberings? Are you more excited about like, okay, the big numbering is cool, but what's the issue before?
I'm not more excited about the issue before. Right. It's just one of those things where it's like, if it's a thing that I haven't read before, where I'm going back and back issues, I'm like, then I'm more interested, like, oh, yeah, but what was right before it? Did it lead into something? And this one is really interesting, right? Because it is required reading for this story. It, like, leads into it. But if it's, like, a normal monthly thing I'm already getting, like we're about to hit Batman 100, or, of volume whatever it is now, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like, ooh, I want to just read that naturally and then get excited for the big milestone issue. And big milestone issues are a lot of work. Like, sometimes they're the ends of a giant arc, like the Joker War in Batman 100, and sometimes they are anniversary issues, like Detective 1027, which just came out, and it's just like like a one-off special thing. And both of those things are valid and interesting and worth doing. But it's all one of those like personal preference things, or how invested were you in certain storylines or whatever, But Detective 700 is pretty cool. I think I own the newsstand version, and I think I do own that same that version you have, where it was actually in an envelope. Yeah, it's like in a little envelope, and it slips out. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I've never opened it, so like I said, it's probably one of the greatest dollar bin finds that I saw, that it was signed by Chuck, and I put it up on the counter. I'm like, the counter going, all right, is he going to go, oh, well, Dixon signed this. Well, that's $80. And he looked at it and was like, that'll be $1. And I felt like, tee-hee-hee, you don't know what I have. And maybe he was like, dude, I got 100 of these things.
Yeah.
Because, like, they'll do that. Like, it's the 700th issue. Everybody's going to want it. So they mass produce it. But it's cool that, got Dixon's autograph on it. A couple little trivia things here. Like I said, this is the first time that Tim Drake faces Ra's al Ghul. And during this time, Talia hints several times for her true feelings for Bruce Wayne, to the point where she sheds a tear as she thought he was dead. So, that happens later in the story. So one of the first things I got here, the symbol around Raish's neck is the main artwork used for the original trades, I believe, Ryan, that you have. And the numbering, that like the shattering bat for the Nightfall books. This is that skull that, you know,
it's the Ra's al Ghul logo.
Ra's al Ghul, yeah. Before this, you know, he didn't wear anything like that, so I think that was kind of a new thing that they were putting on there when you finally...
The demon's head.
Yeah. Get to see the demon's head there and use that very well for the marketing of the book. So when you finally do get to see him, it's like, that does make sense. So I know we talked about the manila cover, but the standard cover of this, which actually technically is the variant, but inside the trade, it's Batman holding the sword, and he's down, you know, in a pit, and you got all the Raish's warriors up above him. Batman's holding the sword, and his costume is tattered. So I think this kind of screams a monumental, you know, issue. So what do you guys think of the version of the covers you have, and is it poster worthy of going, wow, the 700th issue, I want to hang this on my wall, or is it like, it's not really all that special? Terrence?
I like the cover in that it's like a nice contrast to the envelope where it's basically the same shoulders and head, but one is Batman, one's Ra's al Ghul, and he looks pretty good in there, but it's not I wouldn't say it's poster worthy. It's not something I'd want to hang on my wall, but it is a pretty neat reveal. Although I will say that the rest of the artwork by Nolan in this issue is pretty amazing, and there are definitely some poster-worthy scenes. And as we had said in one of our previous podcasts when we went over, I think we went over 697, 698, and 699 for Detective. Those came out like every other week, and this is an extra large issue. So he was doing a lot of pages at this time and killing it. It's like just awesome artwork. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like the standard cover with Batman with the sword because, you know, whenever you see Batman with the sword, you know that, you know, shit's bad. You know, like, which is cool. But the thing that I like even more is the envelope cover, because it's so graphic and it's just black and white in that negative space, and it's that Nolan cover. Just to see, you know, Batman in that era, I mean, it's really defined a lot by Graham Nolan for me. And it made me, it reminds me of a lot of you would see a lot of like Batman, I don't know, marketing images around that time too. It reminds me of like the, you know, Batman Return the Joker video game stuff. You would see kind of like silhouette versions of Batman in a lot of products and stuff. And so it reminded me of that. And so I just like, you know, you would see some things like this, like on you would get some Brian Stelfreeze artwork that looked like this too. So I always like seeing these like representations of the characters like that. So for me, my favorite cover is that, you know, envelope variant. This
comic book for the month of June 1996. It's, as far as sales goes, it was in the top 10. In the top 10, 6 of the top 10 books were Image Comics. What place do you think this came in the top 10? Do you want to take a guess?
I want to go high, but I'm going to say 6.
How about you, Ryan?
You said Image was in the top 6, right?
Six of the top 10 books were Image books.
6 of the top 10.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to say 8.
Oh, wow, you guys split the difference. It was number 7. So you said 6 and 8. Yeah, it was beat out by, get this, number 6 was Prophet Cable by Image. Prophet Cable, number 1. Actually beat out Detective Comics. Now, I think, though, Detective Comics was kind of hurt because it's split, because this just says the collector's edition. So there's probably a newsstand edition further down on the list. Batman 533 came in 8th place. 5th place was Bad Rock Wolverine, issue number 1 by Image. Number 4 was Gen 13, The Unreal World, issue 0 by Image. Okay. 3 was Medieval Spawn Witchblade, number 3 by Image. Number 2 was a DC book, Kingdom Come. All right. Issue number 2. And number 1 was Spawn, issue number 51 by Image. I forgot that Spawn was such a high seller for so long, 51 issues.
Oh, yeah. Remember in Wizard Magazine, it was like all about Spawn.
Yeah. And number 10 was Witchblade, although this is during the time when Marvel had their own distributor. They had, like, I think it was called Heroes World or something.
Oh, yeah, it was before, yeah.
So there are no Marvel books on this list, so I'm not sure what Marvel sold, and they probably sold really well compared to this stuff, so maybe the list would look a little bit different. But our boy Tim Drake, he was holding up. He's the 21th best-selling book, so, and that's issue number 32 for him, so it's kind of, I don't know, I just kind of find these sales things interesting, some of the books here. So anyway.
Yeah, it is interesting because it does provide context too.
Yeah, and that's kind of let you know, and also the books that were popular, and you rattling off some of those, I don't know what that book is.
Yeah,
but this was at the height of Image, so they could almost churn out anything, and it was probably gonna sell really well for them.
And they did churn out anything and everything. Yeah.
Yes, they did. The banner between Dick and Tim, I thought, was really cool before the attack, and a scene that I thought was pretty cool when Raisha's, there with Talia, and you're over the shoulder. On page 5, you get the look of Tim looking over towards Nightwing and him saying, "Wait for it." Bruce saying now, and you have that moment of the shock on Tim's face. So like, oh crap, we're really doing this. Which I thought that was really cool. Like the shorthand that Nightwing, like, he knows what Batman's going to do, and letting Tim know, like, hey, you need to be on your toes right now. So, we've been following Tim for so long, talk about, Tynan's run, where Tim is probably just as good as a detective as Bruce is, and being, one step ahead. This is still a very novice Tim Drake, and probably fighting by the seat of his pants, and also knows he's got this virus inside of him. So I thought that was cool, and kind of give you just those two little panels, gave you that little moment of Dick and Bruce have done this a million times together, and Dick knew what Bruce was going to do and let Tim in on it. So I thought that was cool. I just wanted your guys' thoughts on like the little shorthand between Nightwing and Tim, which kind of goes through a lot of the Robin run. Let's start with Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Legacy just gets really good. I mean, you get part 1, right? But like, you got all the 3 major Bat Family characters here. They're all working together. You've got no dialogue is wasted, no action's wasted. Everything's working together really well. The artwork is just amazing. Like, it's like a climax of a movie right when it starts. I mean, It's really cool stuff. And yeah, so I love the interaction between Nightwing and Robin and Batman here at the beginning. It's just excellent.
Terrence?
Dixon does a great job of writing Tim and Dick as brothers, and it really feels like they are, with Bruce as the dad, and it's a really great relationship, and it works really well. It's not overly dialogued. It's not Tom King where it's 8 pages of dialogue. It's just the right amount, and it's perfect. Yep.
Yeah, and like the whole sequence of them falling down the shaft and the dialogue, and talk about Nolan. Like you said earlier, like he's at the top of his game in here. His panel layouts are absolutely flawless. The series them going down the shaft and swinging through, and the conversation, like the little history lesson that Tim is getting from Bruce.
Oh yeah,
I thought is done really well. And then
page 6, talk about poster worthy, where Batman's throwing a batarang, he's gritting his teeth. They're all running towards the camera.
I remember,
basically.
and that was so influential as a kid when I first read this in that original trade paperback. I was like, oh my gosh, look, they're all fighting together. They are like, they are no holds barred, right? Like I said, they just go out swinging, and then like even the way the lettering is done here, like you don't see too often in books like this where they're yelling and screaming at each other because like there's so much going on, explosions and stuff. Like Batman's yelling, "Get to the shaft, Robin! It's the only shelter!" And it's like, man, they are serious. Like things are dire here.
Yeah, and I wonder with the art too, like Nolan's upped his game, but I wonder, we talked about the sales chart and how Image was dominating, and I've seen Todd McFarlane talk about how he was coming up and drawing Spider-Man, and the editors would yell at him and say, "Stop drawing him so differently, and stop, being so stylized. You need to be like everybody else." So I wonder if at this point was Nolan just now free to be more himself and be more out there and be more expansive, or were they pushing him to be like, "Hey man, we got to compete with Image, you got to be more dynamic, and these pages really got to pop"? Either it might have been a little combination of both, but I do feel like this is 96. It's so Image Comics artist dominated that I feel like it was the perfect, I don't even know the word you'd look to, just the perfect time for Nolan to just kind of come out of his shell and just really just explode on the page here.
Yeah, and it might have been as simple as they're doing all this crazy stuff. I can just be me and just turn out the best version of me and not have to. Yeah. If he goes bombastic, all the eyes are over there, a good art is going to sell because it's good art, and it's not overly so crazy where you're like, man, Batman's got 500 ribcage muscles and Tim Drake looks like he's 6'2". Everything's drawn in proportion. I think the simplest answer is this Occam's razor. Is this what is that? I think the simplest answer might be the right one. I hope I'm using that term correctly because I just made it up. Because I think I learned that from Batman in the Batman versus Two-Face. I saw Occam's razor, Robin. But it's Dixon and Nolan have been a team for a long time at this point, and this is Detective Comics 700. So I'm sure they were like, this is a huge story, it's the big crossover, and probably for Nolan it's this is Detective Comics 700. I'm going to do the best job possible and make the art look awesome because this is Detective Comics 700. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's probably a huge element of it. It's a big bombastic story where a lot of things are happening. It's got a lot of things for him to chew on as an artist. And it's Detective Comics 700. He's going to make it look good. Yeah. So. We were talking about the conversation between Batman and Robin. Dixon underlines how big of a deal Ra's al Ghul is to Batman. And Batman says that Ra's makes the Joker seem small, like an annoyance. Should this still be the case today? Why do you think Ra's is not at the top tier of a Batman villain? I mean, we got the Joker War and 3 Jokers going on right now in DC Comics, and you don't get that Ra's al Ghul story where you're like, wow, if this was a book right now, we'd probably get a moment of oh, here's where the Joker comes in, and it doesn't it doesn't rely on the Joker at all in this story. So I've always liked Ra's al Ghul, and anytime that I read something with him in it, I'm always like, why isn't he a bigger deal than why he is? You guys have any thoughts? I think it's just one of those things where it's when you use Ra's, it needs to be a big deal, and how if you overuse him, he won't seem like as big of a deal every time. And I guess over the years since we've had Damian, that's kind of like a consistent link to Ra's, right? So, yeah. I mean, they've done some interesting things with him since then where, of course he died and then he got resurrected and then all that stuff. But I don't know, maybe it's just an editorial shift too, or it's we just need to use Joker all the time. Yeah. Terrence, anything?
Yeah, he's a tough character. I mean, he was created by Denny O'Neil, so I know Denny O'Neil would use him a lot because it was his own creation, but he's kind of like a more down to earth Thanos, where his goal is just to wipe out half the planet, but yet he's also immortal. So it's kind of it's kind of a one note villain with that. His daughter turns out, Talia turns out to be much more interesting, and so I feel like they use her in place of him, just because it just makes for a much interesting story. Right. They used him a lot on the Arrow TV series, and I actually thought it was done, considering it's CW and a TV series and all that. I actually was, I liked it. I enjoyed that, but it's hard. It's better than the Gotham version. That's and even in the Batman Begins, he's kind of in the beginning, then he disappears, then you kind of have to watch the movie twice to know who he really is, so I don't know, but who knows, maybe he'll make a big comeback or something.
I mean, at least in Legacy, Denny O'Neill's still the group editor here, right, of the whole everything, right? So, like, I'm sure he had some input, and the whole story reads like it's like a, I think I said this earlier in the show, it's like a modern day of the time reinterpretation or another modern Ra's al Ghul story. I don't know when the last time. That's probably a good thing to look up. Is like, when was the last time Ra's al Ghul was used before this? Before Batman Legacy. Like, had it been 15 years or 10 years or more since he had really been used in a huge way? I'm kind of curious what the most previous Ra's al Ghul story would have been before.
I gotta think, in the 5-year span that we've been doing the show and the amount of years we've covered, we've dipped in and out of Batman, and he's not popped up. Yeah.
So maybe that was maybe that's why it was such a big deal at the time, where it's like, maybe people wouldn't have known at the time if you were just a monthly reader. Like, I don't know who Ra's al Ghul is. Like, why would you know? If you had been a modern reader at the time.
Yeah, and I always think he works good when he's more of looking for an heir and choosing Batman. And he worked really well in the Red Robin series with Tim on his own, and kind of was he grooming Tim to be his next heir. That always kind of worked really well for me.
Yeah. The page that I liked, and again, not to keep bringing it to modern times, but at page 14, Raish's explanation is right out of a 2020 CNN, news media clip, where it says,
oh my gosh.
But today, great centers of the world are only separated by hours of travel. The strain is engineered by me to spread in aerosol contact that could reach halfway around the world in days' time. That is literally what happened, in our current situation.
Yeah, I was reading this and I was thinking, like, if COVID did what the clinch does, a lot of what they're saying in this book could have happened. You know what I mean? Like, if it was like literally that much worse, I mean, it's pretty crazy to read now.
Yeah, and you even get the panel from the airplane on 14 where they're moving the dead bodies that are wrapped in the the white sheets, and they're pulling them out of the plane. I'm like, we've seen this stuff, and again in like 96, going, oh, how far fetched is this? Really, a plague's going to spread like that? And 2020 is going, yes, turn and run the other direction. We were talking about how good Nolan is doing in this issue, and I have a note here. This is no disrespect to Aparo from Batman 533. But, we're kind of seeing Aparo nearing the end of his career, and Nolan is at the highlight of his career. This is almost like a passing of the torch, and Nolan's art is spectacular in this book. And I wrote down page 21. I don't remember why I wrote down page 20. Oh, yeah. When Batman and Robin are running from Ubu, air quotes, and the water is rushing in, and you've got Robin running towards camera and Batman yelling run, again, like the word balloons, not seeing there's a lot of shouting in this book. It's something you don't see quite a bit. This sequence I thought is done so well, with them getting trapped in the water and Tim just being fatigued, like Robin wanting to give up and Batman won't letting him, and talk about a progression of a character. Like Terrence said, when Tim faces Ra's al Ghul as Red Robin, all this can be traced back to here. So what do you guys think of just Batman and Robin's moments in this tank where Tim's wanting to give up? I don't know if I call it a fist pumping moment, but that was something like, man, that's missing in some Batman stories where Batman's got his partner's back and vice versa. I thought this was really cool of Batman, even to the point where, Tim's talking about physics and they're going to blow the hatch off of it, and Batman's like, I won't let us die. I thought that was probably my favorite moment. It was this sequence of the tank. What would you guys think about that? Let's start with Ryan.
Yeah, so even not having read or reread this story in years, this scene is one that I could have told you detail by detail, because I remember it so vividly. And it's a big testament to this story that in the middle of this crazy, bombastic, giant world stakes story that you can take the time to have like a very poignant character scene between Batman and Tim Drake Robin here. And like I was saying, like Tim Drake is like the emotional center of this whole story, and so really early on here you get confronted with seeing Tim kind of falter here, and Batman stepping up and being like, no, I'm Batman, you're Robin, we're going to make it through this. And just the way that he has to kind of be a detective and use his wits, and like every time there's a Ra's al Ghul story, it's like the more Batman has to, there's no cape, he's got to take his his costume off, like stuff comes off, and it's like it's not Batman straddling a plane, sorry Tom King, to like land it or whatever. It's not this huge bombastic thing that he's having to do to prove that he's Batman. He's like holding Robin, plugging the hole in this death trap that they're in. It's like a very simple thing, but very high stakes. It's like a life and death stakes. And just the fact that he's like, Robin's already got this virus, he could die, like, and Batman just like holding on to him with everything he has while they're bleeding out, right? Like that. I mean, that felt so real back when I first read it, and it still echoes like now. And when the lid blows off, like it's like a big sigh of relief, because it's still very effective. And having rewatched the entirety of the Batman 66 series recently, it did kind of remind me of, there's like I don't remember the exact episode names, but there is a episode with it's a Joker episode where Batman and Robin get trapped in a cistern like this. And it doesn't fill with water, but it fills with gas. And the Joker is taking away their utility belts. And so Batman and Robin have to like straddle back to back and kind of walk up the whole thing, like, and to get out. So it kind of reminded me of that. It's like, how are we going to get out of this thing? So, but yeah, like this whole scene is definitely a highlight of the whole, probably of one of the standout scenes of the whole crossover, the whole story for me, because it's so dang memorable. Yeah.
Terrence.
I do think it would have been better if throughout the whole issue Batman and Tim had been arguing about where they first met. It was at the circus. No, it was in a basement. No, it was at the circus.
Witness protection.
Yeah, it was in a basement. No, it's the Tom King flashbacks. I do really like this because it heightens the stakes. It makes it real personal. But also, I like it because Robin's in trouble. Batman's got to save him. But it's not that Robin did something stupid or blundered or disobeyed a direct order or anything like that. It's like they're in such a horrific situation that's so dangerous that they just ended up in this circumstance, no fault to their own. But
yeah, and that's not something you see very often, right? Like, it usually is like, oh, Robin got into trouble again, you know what I mean?
I told you not to press that, or whatever, Or
Robin's on his own and now he's in trouble. Got to read the next issue,
Real quick, though, to Ryan's point about this being surprising for Ra's al Ghul, and I looked up, like, sort of his history here, and he really had not been used much at all. In Detective, he was used in, like, issue, 600?
Wow,
and then
100 issues ago.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, he was in 566, 598, then 606, but I don't think they were full stories. I think they were just little, like, mentions. So for Detective Comics, the last time he was in it was 606 all the way to 700. And then same thing with Batman. Batman, he wasn't in, and it doesn't look like there were any real miniseries or anything like that. And it only looks like, I guess they were just sort of just little, like, cameos or something, because he was, like, in issue 400, I think, or something. Right here. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it.
Yeah, anniversary issues usually mean, like, he's in a panel or, like, a splash page or something.
Exactly, yeah. He was in 400, then doesn't appear again to 456, which is that, I think, in just a flashback, and then 561. So from 400 to 561, he's only in 3 issues. It seems like that, was it The Birth of the Demon? That's kind of
right
what he was in last. And then what he's in next is the Tower of Babel story, where he uses Batman's contingency plan in Justice League to disable the Justice League. So yeah, he was used pretty sparingly. Although the trade paperbacks and stuff, that Birth of the Demon one or whatever, what is the one where it's supposed to be where Damien was conceived, but then it turned out to be not in canon, so then he
I can't think of the name of it.
Son of the Demon.
Son of the Demon. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. There was the Ra's al Ghul trilogy, which actually just got re-released in a gorgeous hardcover, which should be getting shipped to me soon. But yeah, I mean, there's Batman: Birth of the Demon. That's a Dennis O'Neil, Norm Breyfogle book, right? That is like, I believe, the original or the definitive, or as yet untold origin story of Ra's al Ghul, as written by Dennis O'Neil and painted by Norm Breyfogle. Probably, and I have not read it. I own the original. But
I have it as well.
But it's that's on my list. I was kind of waiting for this new hardcover triple version to come out because it's got all three of these stories in it. So yeah, but those were outside of the main continuity, or outside of the main books.
Yeah.
Getting through the latter part of this book, I mean, I like how it's kind of funny in some way that Nightwing gets separated from Batman and Robin, so Nightwing's kind of in the middle of his own adventure while Batman and Robin are trying to fight for their life, where it comes down to a sword fight with Nightwing and Ra's al Ghul, which I kind of thought was interesting. And you have Ra's talking to Talia about, Bruce isn't worthy, and, he's dead, and, I've got somebody for you. So when I read this back in the day, I had no idea Bane was coming, Bane was a thing. In the back of my mind, I wanted to think that I knew about Ra's, but I probably didn't. So to get the surprise, like, oh, it's Ra's al Ghul, to get another surprise, like, oh, holy crap, it's Bane, and then having the realization, oh, holy crap, this is going to be the first full-on meeting between a fully energized Batman and Bane, probably back to his prime. So when we got that last reveal, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a pretty big deal, and I think it was Terrence that was saying we get the nice butt shot of Nightwing crawl.
So that,
right, sorry, coming out of the tank here. So it's,
that was Ryan, but you get a nice.
So on
butt
page
shot of
29
Catwoman
is the
too.
one.
Yeah,
Catwoman too. Yeah, Jim Ballant would be happy about that. Which I thought her little sequence too was kind of like, "Hey, I'm in here," so you're caught back up if you hadn't.
It's a
read.
cool coda. You're just like, oh yeah, Catwoman too. Like you've just been surprised. Like all the characters are here, and Ra's is getting away, and oh my gosh, there's Bane, and oh yeah, you got Catwoman, and now like, oh my gosh, where's the story going? Like, there's definitely enough for you to want to keep reading.
And Ryan mentioned this too, but it is awesome that Batman and Nightwing have to lose their shirts, which is a throwback to Batman. I pulled it up here. Batman issue 244. It's a famous cover by Neil Adams of Batman lying on the ground with just his cowl, but his hairy chest, and Ra's al Ghul is holding his costume and has like a sword through Batman, and neither one of them have their shirt on. And in that issue, the artwork has a lot of big sword fighting with them missing their shirts and stuff. So,
and although Ra's is like holding Batman's outfit that has like the pants and the shorts, Batman is still wearing pants and shorts.
Pants and shorts.
Still wearing the
What's funny is like, so I have this issue and I have it signed by, and I got it signed by Neil Adams.
Oh.
And so I was able to actually do that last year at New York Comic Con. I had bought the issue and I brought it with me to get him to sign it, and he told me that story. He's like, I think he's even said like he drew that cover without that stuff at the beginning, like it was just the shirt and the utility belt. But he was like, but it looked weird without the pants, so like I added the pants and just kind of went with it. So, but like even on. That's the thing, too. I'm sure you could find the reference for this, Terrence. Like, on page 30, you have the shirtless Batman, like, pointing at Ra's al Ghul. I'm sure... I'm like, this has got to be, like, a homage to something else. Because I think I've seen a Neil Adams shirtless Batman pointing at Ra's with that same face before. Like, that's got to be, like, some other callback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. And... it's one of those, not that I got this at Ollie's, but buying all of those trades and still going through them to be able to complete an entire trade and go, I read this whole entire thing. I think Ryan almost read it all in an entire sitting.
I did.
So to know like, we got one more whole trade to go through.
And it's the bulk of the story too.
Yeah. So that's... we got to just to the tip of the iceberg And the last note I have here is we catch back up with Catwoman, and this goes back to issue 35 of her series. So if you're like, how is Catwoman in this cell? Well, we kind of quickly recapped that for you. And she's trapped until next time, till the next issue.
Since Ryan's been deep diving into Catwoman, how do you compare this version of Catwoman to Tom King's version of Catwoman? Do you think he was trying to
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, Tom King has a very specific take with Catwoman, right? That he's trying to do, and he's trying to capitalize on the Batman-Catwoman relationship in a way that, I don't know, hasn't... it flip-flops a lot, right? And that's usually part of the appeal, but he's really trying to go towards no, they're horrible for each other, but I'm going to put them together anyway, and they love each other kind of thing. But, it would be, I think my ideal Catwoman would be this 90s one with a little bit more of a relationship with Batman, which I was saying earlier. She doesn't really have too much of that because she's more out for herself, but I do like this basically like espionage Lara Croft version of Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool. It's fun. It's definitely a different take, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, when
I still want to deep dive more into that.
Yeah, I started reading comics. This was the only Catwoman I knew.
Yeah, because they reintroduced her around when Nightfall happened, and their first meeting is between Bruce and Selina's on this plane. Oh, was it a plane? But he didn't throw that in there. But I think at some point before that too, there had been some weird things where I think it was in the Mike Barr run years prior when there was Jason. It was around that weird time where Jason Todd. Before the modern Jason Todd, was Jason Todd version 1, where he was a carbon copy of Dick Grayson. I think somewhere around there, Catwoman maybe did she know who Batman was? She knew who Batman was,
and Batman was, and they were on the road to being a serious couple. Bruce, he was telling Jason I'm going to tell her who I am, and unmasks in front of her, and they were having a relationship. I think then the Joker comes in and wipes her mind or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, so that was one of the other major times I remember that historically that trying to happen, and then editorial jumped in and was just nope, because they talked about that, or didn't we talk to Mike Barr about that?
Barr, yes, we did.
Yeah. At the BGSU Batman conference, yeah.
Well, I think this is we're off to a great start for Legacy, and it's been a while since I've read, Legacy as a whole, just in bits and pieces. So it's all starting to fall back in place. So this was something I was definitely looking forward to, and there were certain storylines where we'll just kind of follow Tim, but I thought this was one that we really needed to kind of go through, and the whole, we said, the whole subject matter is Tim. So before we get out of here, let's do some final thoughts on this, and then after your final thoughts, I'm so bad doing this. I'm listening to Batman Book Club and Straight Outta Gotham. They're like, "Hey, you got anything to plug?" And I'm like, I haven't said that in a dog's age on this show. And Terrence usually says, I got nothing to plug, but who knows? Maybe he will this time. So final thoughts and any plugs, anything you got there. Let's start with Ryan.
Oh, final thoughts. This covering Legacy has been the whirlwind I always hoped it would be, and getting to re-experience this has been great. I'm not exactly sure what we're covering next in terms of our chronology for the show, but what's so cool about the trade paperbacks is that it's almost like the Star Wars viewing order of okay, you should show somebody that's never seen it before, show them episodes 4 and 5, and then when you find out that Darth Vader, spoilers, is Luke Skywalker's dad, then you go back and show them the prequels, episodes 2 and 3, so you know how he became Darth Vader. This Legacy trade paperback does that. Now that you know Bane is a thing, it takes this detour and shoves in the Bane of the Demon miniseries, so you know all that backstory. But I was just looking it up. What's cool about that is that Bane of the Demon miniseries came out 2 years after Legacy came out, so it was made after all this stuff, and it's almost like the same thing that Dixon did about with the Prodigal, right? Where he talked about this confrontation between Robin and Two-Face, and then years later he makes Robin Year One or whatever, and actually makes a story out of it. He did the same thing with filling in the gaps of Bane's story, but they very smartly have slotted that into this Legacy trade paperback thing. So it will read like this cool, like, long-form director's cut version of the story, and I think that's going to be really cool to go back and experience. And just, issue 700 was so cool. Like, all the characters get something to do. They're all important. They all matter. They're setting up a lot. And all the unexpected things, even having things like Nightwing versus Ra's al Ghul, like, that's super cool. That doesn't happen that often. And,
no.
And hearing the... And the fact that he was able to kind of keep up with them and not die, and having the banter between Ra's al Ghul and Nightwing, like, was like pitch perfect writing too, characterization. So super good. I can't wait to cover more Legacy on the show. And as for me, of course, plug wise, just follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. The SMB stands for Super Mario Brothers Movie Archive, which you can follow separately at SMB Movie. And, of course, follow the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network, where you can keep up with all the Batman on Film adjacent shows like this one and the Batman on Film podcast. And if you want to hear me talk more about stuff, I don't know when this show's coming out, but it probably will come out after my appearance on the Batman Book Club's Halloween episode.
Right.
So I'm kicking that off with Ryan Lauer. Our first episode will be covering a Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Brave and the Bold issue that was nice. Batman. Yeah, it was super cool. It's Batman and the House of Mystery. So it's a really cool little story, and that podcast is probably out by the time this one is. So give that a listen to.
Terrence, final thoughts, and if you got anything to plug, man.
Yeah, I got nothing to plug. I'm just I don't leave the house. As people know, I'm a teacher. We're all on. We've been online since March. So, I wake up, I turn the computer on, I interact with the kids, then I think we're going back relatively soon, like in maybe a month or so, they're saying, but who knows with what's going on with the
theaters here just opened yesterday.
Yeah.
That we were in Columbus, Ohio, doing some shopping on Saturday, and they have this nice giant AMC. It's really cool. You go up to like 2 flights of stairs to get to the very top of this thing, and they were actually pulling back all the barricades that they had put up, and I was like, they're actually opening the theater. And I said that to my wife. She's like, keep walking. I'm like, okay, we're not seeing a movie right now.
Yeah. Well, I heard that the number one movie of the week was Hocus Pocus from like 30 years ago. There's nothing new out. So, but and I guess that's for Halloween. It's been re-released, so that's kind of cool. I'll echo what Ryan said about Legacy, and it's really fun. And I feel like this creative team for Batman universe, Dixon's, the Nolans, the Kelly, the Grant, the O'Neill. They have been around before Nightwing. I'm not Nightwing. Hello, before Nightfall. Maybe not before Nightwing. Sorry, it's almost. I almost said it's almost 1 a.m. It's actually 10 after 1 a.m. They were around before Nightfall. They went through Nightfall. They went through all that. They've done this a few times, so they know how to craft a big event, and they're just at the top of their game right here for Legacy, and it's just fun to read. And I got nothing to plug.
I will say, to answer Ryan's question, we will not be covering like we did these main books. We will kind of gloss over the Bane prequel story. Like, we'll talk about it if we want to read about it, see kind of what's going on, but that's 4 issues. I don't want to slow down the main part of Legacy too much, but maybe as reading homework for my fellow podcasters, I could give it a look if you at home want to take a look at it. But as far as review-wise, we'll be jumping into Catwoman 36, but I do kind of want to just say, hey, what were your thoughts on that? So that's as far as homework coming up. other than plugging for this show, you know the show you're listening to. So the other show that I'm a part of with my other co-host, Jay Oz, our Young Justice show, we will actually be coming to the end of the Bendis universe of Young Justice, and you can find us on ELYJ Pod on Twitter. So that is going to be it for this episode. So as a big 700th issue that Detective Comics was, this episode is going to be a little bit bigger as well. Coming up for next for the podcast is another 80th anniversary show. And I have recently just spoken to Stella from Batgirl to Oracle podcast, and she is going to be making an appearance on this show, which I'm real excited. And I think she's going to be talking about Damien. So that'll be interesting to see what she picks. Yep. So I was going to throw it out to Terrence and Ryan, but maybe they won't want to be part of that one. So
his characterization in the Harley Quinn animated series was priceless.
Oh, he was good.
I love that so much.
I'm so good. Especially when he dresses up as Batman, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
That Harley show is so darn good. Oh, we said it before. That show has no right to be that good, and
Absolutely.
It is so stinking good.
And that makes it better.
Oh yeah,
you're like, why is this show that good? This good?
Yeah.
How does it keep doing this? And it shouldn't work, but it does.
The interpretation of Clayface as an actor too. I'm like, why hasn't anyone thought that?
Like, it's so good.
Kazaa! I say that all the time around the house.
Like when he poses as like a sorority girl. He's so good. He gets so into it. It's so good.
Like, oh my gosh, that dress does not match with those shoes, Brittany.
Like, Brittany's not real.
Well, before we get any slap happy, it is 11 minutes after the hour of 1. So, on the behalf of Terrence, Ryan, this is Robin. You've been listening to the Batman universe, and more importantly, you've been listening to Robin. Everyone loves Drake. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Take care. Thanks for listening to Robin. Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. This has been brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net. Tim Drake, Robin, and all Batman-related characters are under copyright of DC Comics. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes, so no infringement is intended by this show. This show is not a good revenue stream. Actually, there's not a stream at all. All music and sound clips are under copyright by their respected copyright holders. So there should be no need to send the Penguins lawyers after us for ill-gotten gains because there are none. You can get a hold of the show a few different ways. We are on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. You can also email in at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. Our Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. And as always, you can message directly over at the BatmanUniverse.net. So email, tweet, or message us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll read your comments or responses on the show. The show you're listening to can be found a few different ways through iTunes and Windows Media, also over at our host, TBU. Leave us a review on iTunes if you listen there. It'll help spread the word of the show. Make sure you head over to the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin. Thanks for listening to the show and hearing why everyone loves the Drake. We'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.